Right. Thanks very much for an interesting day. We have been talking, among other things, about the competitive advantage that open access might have, and we've heard a few thoughts along those lines. We've heard economic arguments. We've heard arguments about access to support, for example, access to the EU financing system. We've heard an argument that one advantage open access has is the goodwill of scientists. We've heard about the possibility maybe that open access journals might be more open to non-traditional ideas than the traditional journals. And we've heard about incentives. It's tempting for me to try to follow up a little bit on what's been said about incentives. I think the intention of the proposal to have a fund at the University of Tromsø is to put to rest the concern about having to pay on the way in, to deal with that problem so that our researchers don't get distracted by that particular concern. And they know that in the same sense that the library is responsible for buying in traditional journals, the library also will take care of paying for the publication fee. That's not an incentive. That's just eliminating a potential barrier. In terms of incentives, I'm not done thinking about this. It seems to me that people who publish a lot don't need incentives to publish because they're already doing it, and people who don't publish a lot don't need. It's not clear that incentives would have much impact there. So I think what Laura really wants is time, and we'll see if we can do that, work on that. From my perspective, open access as it currently is in its infancy. It's only a start. As I said this morning, in some ways it seems to me that OA has been concerned to mimic traditional publishing, and I don't think that's where its potential lies. But I think it has tremendous potential. I actually gave a talk here 2 or 3 years ago with a colleague of mine called Beyond Open Access, and we talked about things like a wiki-type approach to publishing, or various kinds of tools of social media and implementing those into the publishing system. And I continue to think that the potential of open access lies in those kinds of approaches. It seems to me that the funding issue for authors is not a big one. The bigger, more honest issue is about prestige, that traditional journals have amassed prestige over many, many years. And there's no getting researchers away from being attracted to that prestige. The fact that they're researchers at all already shows you that they're not motivated by money. So why? I mean, I don't want to work against the appeal of prestige. So the way to deal with that issue, it seems to me, is at least twofold. One is to get some extremely prestigious journal, let's say The Lancet, to go the whole way in becoming an open access journal, to actually totally change its business model and become an open access journal. That does not seem to me completely out of this world. 5 years ago, publishers were afraid of open access. Now they seem to be totally on board. Maybe that in itself should be a cause of concern to us. But one way to deal with the prestige issue is to get a journal that already has prestige to become open access. And the other way is to think along the lines I was trying to suggest this morning, to find out how open access journals can amass prestige themselves, for example, by implementing systems that guarantee a quantum leap in the confidence we have in the quality of their productions. And that's been touched on several points by several speakers today. Before I wrap up, I would like to say a few things about CRISTIN. CRISTIN stands for the Current Research Information System in Norway, I think. And it is isn't that right? Yes. And it's for people who work at universities, it's the replacement for Frida. So if you've tried to register anything in Frida in the last 2 days, you've noticed that Frida no longer exists. And in a few short days, Kristen will be up, and you can register. When it comes up, it's going to look a lot like Frida. Next year, a new interface will be implemented. The conversion work is massive, and that's what the organization has been focused on. So Kristen now takes everything from Frida and puts it into that system. It takes everything from the system that the colleges have been using and puts it into the new system. It takes from the institute sector. It takes from the health sector. So there's a technical challenge there that is massive and that is being handled with incredible professionalism from the organization. The cosmetic part of it, potentially restructuring the page, getting the part where you can put out your article higher up, that will come, and that will come during 2011. But Kristen also is much more than what Frida was. It's not merely about the registration of research results. Kristen also will have responsibility for negotiation of licenses and purchasing agreements nationally. So it was very interesting to hear a little bit about the German system earlier, and maybe that's something that we need to look more closely at. About 1/3 of the staff associated with Kristen will be working not on software development of the product, but rather on things like consortium agreements and so on. So Kristen has and will continue to have, and to an increasing degree, a role in the open access discussion in Norway, and I hope internationally, and will play a role, among other things, in facilitating that debate. So for that reason, it's especially useful for me personally to have the opportunity to hear all of these talks, and I look forward to continuing to participate in this. So I would like to close by, first of all, once again, singing the praises of the University Library at the University of Tromsø, which I think is a fabulous organization, and I think that their efforts to organize this conference are incredibly praiseworthy. And I would also like to really end by wishing you, as an American, a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks.